Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Capgemini's CSI February webinar on architecting with AWS Architected Framework. We are honored to welcome our today's speaker, Mr. Naveed Sait. Mahinder Garu, over to you for speaker's introduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Capgemini's 2025 first edition of CSI Hyderabad chapter session on AWS, which is one of the most trending cloud provider in the market. As you all know, most of the enterprises embracing the cloud, okay, and it has been become a norm and it is essential due to the various factors like maintenance, scaling, and then complexity. Okay, with that small introduction on cloud and AWS, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Muhammad Naveed, who is going to navigate through the nuances of AWS. Naveed comes with a rich experience in cloud and currently working as a cloud architect at Capgemini. Before I hand it over to Naveed, I would like to set some ground rules for today's presentation. This meeting is a 1 hour session, which 45 minutes is for the presentation. And then due to the time constraint, we would like to take the Q&A sessions in the last 15 minutes. And also, I would like to request all the audience go on mute during the presentation. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Naveed. And Naveed, stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahendra. Hi, everyone. Right, so just before we start our session, I would like to know a little bit about the kind of audience we have, right? So on the chat, please, if you can type S if you're a student, I if you're an IT, N if you're non-IT. Just want to see what kind of audience we have. We'll moderate accordingly. S student, I IT, N non-IT. Non-IT, IT, yes. This session is for you, right? So we'd like you to take all the benefit. A lot of IT. There was one student, but a lot of IT. Okay, this gives us a picture. Fine. Right, most of us are in IT. A little bit presence of a student. Fine. So next question follow-up. If you're familiar with cloud, you say C. If you're not familiar with cloud, you say N. It doesn't matter which cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP, any other cloud. C cloud, great. N for not so much familiar with cloud. Fantastic audience. Fantastic. A lot of relevant stuff can be discussed. Okay, we get the picture. Thank you, everyone. So with that in mind, let's see. We'll try to do some justice to those who represented a student a little bit. But a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Okay. Right. So architecting with AWS well-architected framework. Now title says AWS, title says something about architecting, and of course we'll talk about well-architected framework. But if you're from other clouds, Azure, GCP, Oracle, any other cloud, you can always correlate because the principles behind architecting will remain the same. Okay. A little bit about me. Mahendra did give an introduction, but just a short intro from my side. I do hold professional certifications in architecture across these major clouds, AWS, Azure, and GCP. I may have used some resources or images from AWS, but again, the principles behind these will remain the same. We are architects, so the principles are more important. Security is another specialty area which I like. And within Capgemini, I've done L2 certification. I worked across a few geographies, so some good things I was able to see in some cultures. These are some of the clients. Total Energies, IMAX, and my current client is Stegna. That's my LinkedIn ID. I'd love for us to connect. And Medium is where I keep publishing my blogs, mostly on cloud, some on career guidance, mostly on architecture as well. Right? Okay, what do we want to cover this particular session? We'll take an app migration. We need some example to talk about well-architected. We'll take one example. So we'll see how this cloud migration context comes in. Then we will delve into what is this well-architected framework. For those of us who are familiar, maybe you can value it as well at the end of it. We'd like to have this interactive session and we can learn from one another. And for those who are new, I mean, I don't mind if you just type a line on chat and we'll try to explain that a little further. So like Mahindra said, in this particular session, we'll take questions later because I thought we'll expect a mixed crowd, right? And again, a use case from one of the real assignments we have done, of course, sanitized version. And then career options in the cloud world. I didn't expect some people to be from non-cloud, so I thought it would be an interesting topic. And somebody did say a student, so I expect some small presence of this community as well. We will see. So let's start with a story. Everybody likes story, right? A very short story. Birth of public cloud as we know it in a very quick, let's say 1 minute story. So initially we had Amazon, e-commerce giant. Everybody knew Amazon, people used to do online shopping. So they had these huge data centers. They invested a lot. Right? So in fact, it was more than what they needed at that point. So when they saw we had lots of this infrastructure waiting, what do we do about it? So they said, here's an idea. Okay, they brainstorm whatever, and they came up with this idea. So they already had this technology of hyperizer, right? A large not computer, large computer. It can be made into logical smaller computers. That's the hypervisor technology. So long story short, they managed to make it work, commercialize it. So we are able to request small computers over the cloud, and they're able to serve it. That's how the public cloud, as we know it today, has come into existence with that small background. So when that has happened, what did enterprises do? They said, let's evaluate this. Let's see if it works for us. We just pay for what we use and we don't have to invest a lot upfront. So let's take the plunge. Okay. So for us to understand our topic, well-architected framework, we'll take the story forward. We will take one example. If we keep talking of a lot of theory, then we'll not have any takeaways. So we'll take one assignment, a very simple assignment because of lack of time. Let's say migrate an on-prem application to cloud. Okay, imagine you are the solution architect for this. So business takes a decision, engages a cloud consulting firm because they are not the experts on cloud. They have some other business to take care of. So they engage us, let's say, and each one of us imagine we are the solution architect. So general strategies for migration, it could be rehost. You just pick up whatever's working here, put it on one of the clouds, make it work there. Or re-platform, some of the underlying platform components will change. Refactor, you make some changes. Okay, you don't rewrite the entire logic, but you make significant changes. You refactor the code. Repurchase, obviously, if easier options, go and see what's available, purchase it. Retain is at the end of the assessment, you say, you know what, in this context, for this use case, it's better you continue what you're doing. There are some cases. And one of the applications I worked on ended up with a retain. Or retire, you retire this and maybe business doesn't need it anymore. So for our example, we'll take refactor. We need any one example to delve into well-architected framework. So a solutions architect comes in. What does he do? He or she do? He connects with stakeholders, gathers requirements. By the way, it's very generic, right? It's nothing to do with specifically to, in terms of cloud migration. Anybody who needs to move a system from A to B will talk to stakeholders, gather requirements. So we typically use a questionnaire. Okay, tell us this, tell us that. We gather some data. Then we capture the as a state, how it is running today in on-prem. Its dependencies, what is the configuration it has. So a number of things we try to capture. And for this, we run interactive workshops. So we get the right stakeholders from the client end, and we say, let's build a story. So you have this, you have that, and this is how it works. So it's an interactive workshop. So once we capture the as is, we step back, take some time, then we come back and propose a target architecture. So that target architecture, it needs to make sense to a lot of audience, like the decision makers or business heads, and then the technical people, because at the end of it, they will advise back to business. Yes, it works for us or not. And then we present the proposition of the solution along with cost, expected timeline, those additional factors, so that business can take a decision with this cost and these benefits. Yeah, it's a go ahead, right? Some of the challenges we may have, legacy technologies. Many times we see that the application you're trying to move use very old technologies, and now the decision is moved to cloud. So challenges: can you move this, or do you want to update your tech stack? Outdated systems, unclean data, so a lot of stuff. Okay, let's say these applications running for long. I like this analogy, right? On this lighter note, it's like trying to move a messy room to a new house without cleaning it first. Okay, and a lot of people hope a lot in business and technology. When you move to cloud, it's a new start. It'll be cleaner. It'll be less costly, and all that wish list. Okay, so before we continue our story, a look at what we want to talk about when we look at the story, with what lens we want to look at the architecture. Right? The architecture, well architected framework, many ways of explaining it. I picked up one set of best practices that the cloud provider recommends. That's how when you build and operate your application, follow these basic principles. So that's when you get the best benefit of cloud. Right? So whether it's AWS, okay, you see six pillars here. We have operational excellence, performance definitely important, reliability definitely, right. It's one of the pillars. If the system is not reliable, then and there's no fun talking about it either, right? Sustainability. This is one of the latest pillars that has been added about a year and a half ago. Security. We don't have to explain this further. If the system is not secure, then you can imagine what all can happen. Cost optimization, definitely a big factor in terms of business go no go decision. Right, at the end of it, business is there for a purpose, and if they see the system is too expensive, they would rather look at alternatives. So let's say in the other cloud provider, Azure, similar pillars over here. Sustainability is a new one. Otherwise, you'll see more or less they are similar. And GCP, I've just picked up three major clouds just to show that across the cloud world, people are more or less, architecting in a similar way when we talk of a well-architected application or a framework. Again, I like this analogy when I was exploring how to explain this better. So a well-architected framework is like a well-architected pizza. It needs a right balance of ingredients. So somewhere you need more security, so you invest on more cost, but somewhere you're cost conscious and you say, can there be a trade-off balance? Yeah. So all that put together, finally a pizza or a well-architected application is ready. Okay, now with that background of well-architected, let's go back to our story. We picked up an application. We want to migrate it from on-premise to cloud. In your context, whatever cloud is closest in your mind, AWS, Azure, GCP, you can visualize that context. So we spoke of this assignment. By the way, this is one real assignment. I've sanitized it. There are a couple dozen assignments I've given. I picked up the simplest one because of the scarcity of time. We need to achieve something in, say, 30 minutes, right? This is a simple example of the questionnaire that I personally follow. Many architects do this. We pick up what is the type of or the purpose of the application, then they explain a bit more. It's let's say a web application. It has a database, Oracle in this case. What are the key components? We start capturing this data. Later on, we put all this in a diagram, right, to visualize better. How many users are they authenticated? Is the data encrypted? So you see, all of these questions are important to understand how this as a system currently works. Okay, I've summarized some here. Each of these can be a separate question in terms of database, what the authentication, how big is the database, environment. So a lot of such questions, right? And about 60 plus questions is what I have in my list whenever I approach this assignment. Here's the first interesting step, capturing the as a state. So in my case, many architects have different styles, right? In my case, all of the 12, 13 assignments that I've done were all virtual. Okay. So we get the right stakeholders, we are on a shared screen, and I start drawing diagrams and asking the story. So what happens, what are the components, how does the flow happen? So we construct a story. Something like this, for example, we come up with a as is logical architecture. So there's a business user, he uses a web application in this case. It picks up data from a database. An external system puts some data in this database, which the user is consuming through the application, right? So you see a lot of this is just logical English, right? So logical representation of key components does not get into technical details. It's okay to indicate some purpose for the system. For example, external system, it provides billing details. So it has its place. You want to explain few things to non-technical users, you would use a logical diagram. They don't have to understand Oracle 10G, nothing of that sort. So let's say senior business decision makers, right? If they're not very tech savvy. The next step is capturing the as is technical architecture. That is also important. Unless you know some technical details, how will you even think of migrating and finding some equivalent solution in the cloud? So here you get into capturing the specifics of the system. If it's a web app, what have you written it in? Here they say Java 1.8. I use struts. Okay, it's running on Tomcat. So all that stuff. Oracle 10G. Yeah, it's an old database, but they have it running for a few years, and it's okay. It's running. Um, so it goes on and captures the technical details, HTTPS and all that, right? But it's a technical representative system, captures technical details. So once all this is done, you're clear with how the system works currently, right? So you step back, you think over the solution. Now is your turn to come up with the target architecture. And we will tie this back to the well architected framework that you spoke about. If you are giving a solution, it better be one functional, a working solution. You can't just put some diagrams and hope to work, right? It needs to be feasible, secure, scalable solution. And it needs to be cost effective. So all those factors need to be borne in mind. So let's take the first step. This is how we will typically, look at a technical solution. So this is the cloud world within which we have our account. So whatever resources we are going to put as part of the solution, they will be charged, right? So within this account, whatever you put in, the client will be charged at a monthly billing cycle, let's say. So we start with a clean slate. It's a VPC, and VPC is a isolated network. Unless you decide it's not going to be interacting with the internet world. So you have a secure isolated network for you to peacefully put your solution. Um, we look at very secure subnets. Okay, subnets is part of the network. VPC has, let's say, it can accommodate 10,000 components. So a subnet, you can say, I can accommodate maybe 500 components or 10 components, whatever you decide. So these are for a small group of people who are not so much into cloud. You can imagine this VPC as an isolated network, and these blue boxes, they are very secure, locked rooms. Okay? Unless you allow somebody, nobody is able to look into it or go access any component within it. It's a very secure room, let's say. So within the private subnets, we start off with our first component. Okay? We captured some data. We understood it's an application. In this case, let's say it's a web application, simple web application to start with. It interacts with the data database and serves data to the user. So we say, you know what, for such a use case, maybe we'll suggest to them a web app, which is an elastic beanstalk. Now I've started using some words from AWS. The GCP people and Azure people can imagine an equivalent, whether it's a web app or I forget the word for GCP right now. So basically, you see it's put in private subnet. You see this dotted line, which is a security group. Security group is a firewall. You decide what can come in. Only those who are allowed to come in, those flows can come in. When I say flows, an HTTP flow, port 80 or whatever, right? Or 443. So that application has to talk to a database. You see a change here. We also recommend a database, but then it was Oracle 10G. And now we are talking of some other database here. It says RDS, PostgreSQL. So this is why it's an example of a refactor. If it was lift and shift, you would have said same Oracle, instead of working there, it has to work here, right? Maybe version change, that's okay. It's still considered lift and shift. But refactor is you're going. It could have even be a re-platform for that matter, right? But then you're going to make more and more changes. A lot of this will change. So that's why it falls into refactor category. So we can also debate over which database is the best candidate. They're currently using Oracle 10G. It's an SQL database. There are some structured approach to it. So one of the candidates we recommend is PostgreSQL because one, it's open source. Okay, you don't have to pay licenses, and business will be happy. You know what? I save licenses on the Oracle database server. Here, I don't have to pay the license fee. There are other fees you might have to pay, but the license fee is gone. Okay, and there are some other advantages of using RDS in terms of how it heals itself, in terms of how it's very good in performance and all that. Right? And there are multiple candidates. Whenever you make an architecture decision, now it's not part of this particular session, but uh, while we're at it, I can make a mention. There's something called ADR, Architecture Decision Record. Right? Whenever you make an architecture decision, you record it. We recommend RDS Postgres. Okay, let's say the in our example it was Oracle. Now we say the candidates which can replace Oracle are one SQL Server, second Postgres that we see here, or it could be MySQL. So there are multiple options, and you say we recommend or we decide, make a decision to go with Postgres because then you give your reasons why you didn't choose the other candidates, why you chose this. That's an architecture decision record. That's a simple way of understanding it. More of it probably in some other session if we get to talk about it. So moving forward, so we have the application, we have the database that we recommend. Again, you see database is in a secure locked room, private subnet. There's a security group around it, and there are many more layers of security we will build in terms of how a user can use this database, how an administrator can use the database. Moving forward, we need to allow the user to log into this application. So imagine user is sitting somewhere on the internet. He needs to be authenticated. So there are some components put in here where the flows goes and checks with the user management component. In this case, it's Azure AD. A company can use any identity provider. So we continue to use the same provider which the company has been using. So user gets authenticated, comes back. If the user is a valid user, authenticated, and is authorized to use the application, then we allow this flow. Okay. So we addressed application, we addressed database. Now we are looking at how to allow a user to use this application. So far, half the story is constructed. Okay. User is able to access the application and the data. We build some more components to it. Okay. How do I know valid user is accessing it? How do I know it's not a malicious user? Of course, authentication can work, but what if there's a DDoS attack? What if there are multiple systems trying to log in? It will bog down the system. Okay. So we have WAF, which identifies this kind of attack and stops it, doesn't allow it to go forward. And then certificate manager to make sure this is a secure call. So we add these components. Also remember we said there's an external system that puts data in the database. And we need to build a secure way for this external system to put the data, right? And in the questionnaire, maybe the client would have said, today data is not encrypted, but when we move to the cloud, I would like the data to be encrypted at rest, when it's in transit and all that. So one of the solutions, there are many possible solutions. One of the solutions is when this external system tries to put data in this database, firstly, I need to build a mechanism so that I identify the external system. It's only this system that's sending the data, not some malicious system that's trying to break into the system. So we ask this application to get registered in one of the resources cognito so that I start identifying that this is the correct system and it's not somebody else who's trying it. So when the system gets registered, every time it makes a call, it asks for a key. Okay, a key to identify saying this is my token. So it takes the token and then makes a call. This guy here, API gateway, this guy is somebody who takes the call and redirects it to the right component. So here it makes a check. When it receives the call, it goes and checks with Cognito, I've received this token. Is this a valid token? So firstly, a Cognito will say, yes, it's a valid token. It also means that it's currently valid. It didn't expire, right? So the call is made to go forward. You see one more component here, um, inverted Y-O2, right? So in AWS, it's Lambda, and GCP, it's Cloud Function, and Azure Function, right? So this small bit of resource, small piece of resource, it takes the data. You see here encrypt and ingest. So it encrypts and then stores in the database. And that encryption key has to be available with this application to decrypt it, right? So we have managed to convert this into a very secure flow where we can identify the system, encrypt the data and put it in database. So that's why more and more we see this as a refactor case. It's not a simple lift and shift, not a simple replatform. There's some work to do, and it's not like rewriting the entire application. Anyway, so a little bit moving forward, we also need a database administrator or an admin to access this database. Could be some administrative activity, could be, the DBS have a lot of things to do as well with the database, right? While some of it is taken care of by the cloud provider, but there is still a need for the DBA to log in. So how can we give him the access? Well, we can have something called a bounce server. A popular word going in the industry is Bastion host. More academic ones use the word Bastion host in articles in academia. So what is this Bastion host? Basically, it takes any call from outside. This guy is in an internet wallet. Anybody can make a call. Takes the call, make sure that it acts as a firewall basically, and then allows only certain flows to go in, and then you can access the database. Usually, Bastion host is in public subnet. If you research any article, if you just search Google, what is Bastion host? The images that will get shown or even explained is Bastion host to be in public subnet. But we are, um, you know, uh, very savvy about security. Okay, so we put that Bastion host as well in private subnet, and then we open a session using Sessions Manager. This is a much more secure posture. Okay. Now, whatever I'm explaining here, most of these are available as blogs and articles I've been writing. For example, this Bastion host. Usually it's in public subnet, but we prefer in private because these are the advantages. And my expectation is more and more this pattern will catch up. Okay, this architecture pattern. Right. So we have managed to give a secure way for DBA to access database, and also this can be controlled by IAM. This is not just a user ID password, but IAM is more considered more secure. Right? The plain text user ID passwords. What else can we talk about? So we'll pause here. Just relook at this and remember the principles of well-architected framework. So we question ourselves, right? Is this architecture secure? Well, from what I can see, a lot of private subnets at the first level security. Well, I see some security groups with every VPC component that I can run my eye on. Even the Bastion host. Bastion host basically is a virtual machine, right? An EC2 in AWS, virtual machine in Azure. So whenever you have a virtual machine in public subnet, if you have experienced it, if you have seen those product systems, it is bound to be under attack. As an example, we were trying something in development. We created an EC2 machine public subnet. Within 1 hour, we saw so many IPs which attempted to get in and they were rejected. But that 1 hour, it was very scary. The moment you put some machine on the internet, on the public subnet, it's bound to be attacked. So this is a much better posture. Whatever else I can see here, an authenticate user, the flows are HTTPS. Okay, I have not shown it here, but all the flows are HTTPS. Recognized external applications. Let's look at some performance, right? Is this looking to be a good performance system? Well, some serverless components I can see. I can see Lambda. RDS is reasonably good. Postgres is a good choice. Web app itself, right? The Elastic Beanstalk in AWS, it eases a lot of steps when it comes to deploying a web application. If it's a simple web application, first choice we have is why don't you try Elastic Beanstalk? You don't have to make sure n number of dependencies are properly packaged and so many other dependencies have to work and the versions and all that. It'll do the job. Okay, it's very easy to deploy, very easy to maintain. Now, cost, right? Cost is also one thing we usually look at last, but that's very important as well. So within the Elastic Beanstalk, it's again just EC2 instances running. Okay. So have you configured just the required number of EC2 instances? Will it scale? Imagine it's not just an Elastic Beanstalk. You've used machines, okay, equivalent of computers, and you want them to scale up. If the traffic flow goes up, you want the instance to scale out and handle the flow, handle the traffic. And once the flow is back to normal, you don't need so many instances. Scale back in. So maybe you can use EC2 instance with ASG. That's a different use case. In this use case, the guy was having a simple website. Okay, so we came up with this. Before I pause, I'll show you one more option. Let's say it's not a simple website. Okay, let's say it's a e-commerce website. Imagine so many things are handled in a e-commerce website. Look at this option. Everything else remains the same. See, only this component has changed. Instead of Elastic Beanstalk, we have a very nice ACS Fargate option being used. Basically, what it converts or means for non-AWS audiences, and a serverless option where all these pods are addressing, in terms of microservices, each is addressing one responsibility. For example, maybe products is talking to, I've not put in here, maybe in S3, because products are not always structured. Different columns, explain different types of products. Maybe there's a cart where the user puts the orders and that's maintained in an RDS or DynamoDB. Maybe there are orders that can be managed here. So each of these is a microservice, and each of these pods can go up or go down in terms of handling the traffic. So a lot of those well-architected framework principles that we had, we can put in place here and see whether it lives up to the expectations, or are there things that we are lacking, right? Here you have a lapse in security, or here you are using too many resources. So that's an impact on cost and sustainability. Okay, I'm almost at the end of our first part of the story. Here we can see this. So a review of each of these principles. Security. You see the flows were authenticated, they were encrypted, all the flows are HTTPS, right? With WAF and certificates in place, all the VPC resources and private subnet except where we are forced to put in public subnet, right? Maybe the ALB. VPC endpoints, wherever they're required, you can use them. Database, we saw this. The DBO is accessing through a sessions manager and bounce server or bastion host within private subnet. So very enhanced security posture. What was not shown with the database master user password, it will be rotated by secrets manager. Or even the IAM database authentication is catching up a lot. People don't use user ID password these days. They are promoting IAM database authentication. External system, we spoke about it. Let me move a bit quickly so that we can save some time for some questions, discussions. Performance wise, some of these services we mentioned are high performance. Reliability, we use serverless wherever we can because many clients are new to cloud, or at least not that mature. The maturity index is not very high. So more and more we build or give them the serverless option so that the overhead on administrating these is very less. Okay. Of course, there's a trade-off. Okay? There might be a little more cost, or in some cases you save on cost and you serve less. So there are different use cases. Operational excellence here, try more of serverless components. A lot of these things will take care. Cost, the last one in this particular chart, we start with minimal configuration, of course. So typically what we do is we look at 1 year's metric of CPU and memory and see whether the current configuration of the machines, they are at 80% or 20%, or it gives an idea of how you want to configure your resources when you start. Of course, as you go 3 months, 6 months, you will be able to fine tune. But how do you start? How do you know which is a good right sizing to start with? You look at what are the trends in the last 1 year in the on-prem application. Then you bring down EC2 or RDS are not required. This you can configure. a lot of benefit with pay as you go. No? So I'll pause here. And if you have any questions, you may feel free to jot on the chat window. We'll come back to it quickly. But given we have another 20 minutes or so, I did expect a small set of people at least who are not on cloud, maybe in IT, but not on cloud. But since I have this, maybe I'll just quickly run through this. And the student community, some person has joined or some people have joined. You can see if something interesting you can pick up. Some popular cloud roles. We spoke of the architect's world. So there's cloud solutions architect. We just saw one of the things it is. Hey, of course, any role of this magnitude does 100 other things. There's a term called application architect. So he sits more with the application team, more on in depth, more involved with the team in terms of the day-to-day activities, advising them on more secure way of implementing it. So another role, enterprise architect. So a little bit different from the general cloud architect role. Enterprise architect takes a view of things at an enterprise level. Maybe it's not just one application moving from on-prem to cloud. The client has a holistic idea. The client has a few other things maybe that can be tapped in. Okay, I don't have an example right now, but on a different topic, I have something for enterprise architect, and there we will see how the solution architect starts off simple, but then because the enterprise has a few things and they were not in the scope initially, how he ends up with a clever architecture, maybe for another day. Microservices developer, another very popular role that is in high demand. Any of these clouds is fine, but if you're a good microservice developer, especially with Java Python kind of combination, you're much in demand. DevOps engineer architect, again, we keep hearing this. I have my own philosophy of what DevOps is. It's not just CI/CD. CI/CD is just an automation, right? DevOps is something different. But market terms, the way they go is I want a DevOps engineer who's good with CI/CD. That's more or less the first line in the JD. Anyway, so IAC engineer is another role, and AI engineer is soon catching up. We have about 20 minutes done. So basically, some soft skills. It doesn't matter what role. You need to have good communication. It's okay wherever you are. You pick up and you start and you learn on your way. If you're blessed with good communication, great. Otherwise, many of us pick up during the work, right? A lot of people have spoken to this. I wasn't this good, but during the work, I learned and I adapted, and that's how I'm good at this. Problem solving, collaboration, all of these good qualities. I like the last one, especially as I mentioned it, being approachable. If you're a good solution guy, whether you're a developer or an architect, basically you're a solution provider, right? People need to be able to approach you and talk to you, have a conversation. So all these are good, important, soft skills to have. Some of the popular certifications will not go in depth into a lot of these, but I just want to make a comment. Foundation level, there are some certifications at the that this word is not come out fully. So foundation associate level, there are few certifications. At a professional level, there are few. Depending on where you are, you might want to chart a path. Okay, maybe today I am a developer. I would like to go the architecture path or the DevOps path, or you need to have some inclination of what you like. Then talk to some mentors or like-minded people and then figure out, right? And even if you are an architect already, it doesn't mean your journey has stopped. Things are changing very fast, and you always see what's happening, you adapt. So it's good to have a network of people to talk to. This is, I think, the last slide. So whether you are a college graduate, whether you are an IT professional or non-IT professional, there's always something or the other that you can always pick up and do good. So in terms of moving towards your preferred cloud roles, today I'm doing this, how can I reach, role X, right? An architect role or an enterprise architect role, something in your mind for your next start. So especially for people, let's say in the context of not in cloud, they want to come to cloud, or maybe you have some cloud, but something else that you aim for in the cloud world. So pick up some free courses for the expertise you're aiming for. You don't have to pay a lot, at least when you start, right? some companies like our own Capgemini, we have re-synergize. There's an opportunity to work on something that your project doesn't allow. So these are good opportunities. uh, Appropriate market recognized certification will be good. Even one good is sufficient. You don't have to be 10x and 20x. If you're aiming for, let's say, an architect role, then if you say I'm a professional architect, well, it speaks for something. And we're not saying that is sufficient to get you a job, but among 10 CVs, there are some higher chances, right? People always have this philosophy, it's no good, and some people say no, it'll get you somewhere. So all that has its place in the context, but in your own context, whether if I add this logo, whether it'll help me um, have better chances to be shortlisted. Subscribe to all these good platforms. There's LinkedIn for a good networking. There's Medium, and there are many such blogs where you can write your blogs. You can read, then you can basically you just have to write what you have already done. For example, right? If you've done a project, you implemented some solution, you can talk about it. You're comfortable because you've done it. You're just writing about it. Maybe somebody else will find some solution in that.
Navid, you are talking on mute.
Thank you. When did I go on mute? Just now? Sorry, how long was I
Yeah,
on mute?
last last
Just now.
10
Just
seconds
now
only. Yeah.
only. 10
Yeah,
seconds,
yeah.
right? No, that's fine. That's fine. I don't know how that happened. So what I was saying was, whether you are starting afresh or whether you're an experienced person, but you need to go somewhere else, right? Maybe you're planning for, yeah, again, a simple example. You're a developer, you want to go for an architect role, or you're not in cloud, but you're trying to have a breakthrough. Somebody give me a cloud role, I'll do my best. So many times we have this, I don't have the experience. So we have started telling people, you build and learn. You go build a small project. You don't have to pay a lot, right? There are free tires that you can stay within. But if you get an opportunity, say, what, while I'm answering this, can I show something that I've built? The person will say, okay, fine. So open GitHub, open, some of the architecture work you have done. Say I've implemented this, and they may you can lead the conversation that way. Okay, the person may have some set things in mind to ask, but during the interview you can lead this conversation, show them what you have. So that way, even if you don't have a lot of experience, but you've actually built it, and the person may see some confidence, right? So also showcase your works in blogs, interviews. So that's how you learn and expand your network as well. Also, this is not to be undermined. See what's happening in the market, right? Maybe your company has a lot of demand and you keep getting those emails, but also in the market there are certain things happening. If you're not in touch, you may not be in the same rhythm, right? There's no harm in checking out what's going well and what are the kind of JDs that are going out. Let's say you want to make a break into the cloud world, and you need to be able to see what kind of requirements are there. One JD may be misleading. Look at a few JDs for the role that you have in mind, and look for hackathons. Many times I see people, including me earlier, I then participated in a hackathon, but initially I felt like I'm not that good. It doesn't matter. Just go participate. People will be talking about it. You'll be part of a group. So many such things you can pick up. Make that plunge, right? And also internship. Like I said, I imagine a few other kind of audience. I thought I'll talk about it, but knowing the audience right now, we'll just cut it short. So if the internship opportunity is there, yeah, by all means pick it up if you don't really have a full-time job already. Focus on quality networking. You can have 1,000 people in your contacts, but not adding value because you just kept adding a lot of people. Nothing bad in it. It's good to have a mix of people. But then if you're looking for certain focused group, then those related professionals or mentors or industry leaders, you will benefit because they keep writing, they keep talking about it, and for you it may be new at that time. That will help you pick up those terms, go around, find out more. Who knows, you can start speaking about it yourself. So another 10-12 minutes left, so I want to stop here and see if we have any comments or interesting things that we want to bring up. I don't mind if somebody wants to just start talking and asking a question. If we have nothing much here, then yeah, either we can keep the floor open.
So having done one certification for say AWS,
Yeah.
how is it to then do GCP or Azure? Is it simpler?
Okay, I'll answer it in two parts. Again, this is my view. So we always recommend going for one cloud first. I'm just piggybacking on your question because there may be some people who may not be on cloud. So always go for one cloud first. Be comfortable with it. If you're a developer, yeah, you're comfortable. If you're an architect, now I know enough, so I can pick up or look at another cloud. So more specific second part, and as an answer to your question, initially I thought it's apples to apples. I know certain things in AWS. I started with AWS. Then when I went for Azure and GCP, is going to be, if it's A here and what is it there? It turned out that at a more in-depth level, these three major clouds, I have studied AWS, Azure, GCP, I've also studied Oracle. Okay. And these all of these clouds have different approaches. Okay, at a high level, if it's storage, for example, if it's S3 in AWS, it's GCS in GCP. So that way, in principle, yeah, they use similar stuff. They're not going to be exponentially different. But how they approach security, for example, is really different. Okay, how AWS manages resource in an account and how you pay for an account is different from how GCP treats an account. Very simple example. In AWS, if you have a dev account, QA, and prod, you basically have three accounts. Every account you create, you're supposed to give your credit card details, and that will be charged separately, each account, right? In GCP, you have something where you give your billing details separately and then link with each of these accounts. So a little bit of different way each of these providers has approached. But then the good part of it is if you're comfortable with one cloud, the principles, and you have a sound understanding, then yes, you can pick up other clouds. It's going to be more or less a straightforward journey, not as difficult as somebody who's learning it the first time. So yes, part of the answer is go ahead. If you're comfortable, you'll find it nice and enjoyable, even if with the difference. And no is don't start off with n number of things. And if you're an architect, if you've done one cloud and you want to pick up another, great choice. Because I have had two assignments where I had to study GCP in as is, that's my current assignment, and build in AWS. And an earlier assignment was study in Azure and build in AWS. So you will have higher chances if you know more than one cloud.
Okay. Thanks, Mohammed. If
And
you were to if you were to recommend a cloud, say it's open, I mean that choices with the solution architect. So which would one you are recommend based on your experience?
good. One of the clients had this question. Okay, how do you determine decide? So we start off with what this client ecosystem is built in. If the client ecosystem is more of Microsoft, then a natural fit is Azure because it tends to gel very well with other Microsoft technologies. So we say, why don't you consider Azure? Right? If it is not the case, the client is equally open to any of these options and the ecosystem is not giving great indication, then we look at the use case. If, for example, it's a IoT use case, right? I don't know how many of us are aware, but GCP has given up. They don't want to focus on IoT. If you're not aware, then it might be surprising, but not every cloud provider is focusing on every area equally. Okay, it's a strategic decision they have taken. So if it's IoT and you're suggesting GCP, then either you may realize later or people may think you're not very clear with the platform. If it is big data and BigQuery and those things, yeah, GCP is great. So depending on what the use case is, that will be the ultimate thing which any architect will say, tell me what you have, and I will tell you which cloud may be better. But even before that, if you want a few suggestions, then tell me about your ecosystem. I may add one more point to this, right? That's my current assignment, so it comes to my mind. When I came to this engagement, they said I need to migrate an application from GCP to AWS. And to me, it was very amusing. It's already running on GCP. You have the cloud benefits. It's running for 4 years, by the way. Why do you want to move it? So it seems there were two reasons. One is the interfacing systems, partner systems. There were about a dozen systems, right? Most of them were on Azure, sorry, on AWS. So that is one inclination they had, but that was not the trigger. Obviously, AWS sales team has done a great job, throwing in some benefits and all that. That's a different ballgame. Okay, so they also influence the business decisions. So all of this culminated into let's make the decision and go for it. And they didn't envision at that time, but at some point, if chance permits, we can discuss an enterprise architecture where they ended up with paying half the cost, not because of specific decision they made, but because of clever re-architecting, we managed to reduce the cost to half. They're paying 28,000. We managed to give it under 12, 13,000 per month.
Hi,
Okay.
hello, Mohammed.
Go on, please.
See, I am very new to the cloud and everything. You can say I don't know anything. Start
Okay.
the journey.
Hmm.
So, which cloud should I pick? Like AWS, JCP, Azure, or how to start my journey?
Okay, let me show you this. I specifically had my screen shield still shade. Yes, I specifically had this kind of a audience when I got this. Okay, let's say so. What do you do now? What's your current role? What is your work?
Okay, my current role is a system architect. We are making a product for Nokia.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
platform.
So you are here.
Okay,
You are an IT professional. Just that into cloud
IT
world you
product.
have not stepped in yet. Okay.
Yes.
So things like, let me just take a few things that may be most relevant, right? So firstly, some free courses. Don't spend a lot. There is a lot of material. One other thing which is not mentioned and I just orally voice out sometimes is find out one or two mentors. Okay, these days one mentor is bandwidth and all that stuff. If you one or two mentors, talk to them. They may not be able to spend 1 or 2 hours at length, but they may keep giving you tips on and off whenever you talk to them, right? So talk to somebody whom you're comfortable. Maybe the person will say, "Why don't you take this course? It's free for us in Capgemini." For example, right now I can tell you, Udemy has very good courses. Depending on what your inclination is, I want to be an architect. You're a system architect already, so maybe you may have a natural inclination to go for a cloud architect, right? So if that is the
Yeah.
case, then you can pick up Udemy's. I can give a specific course. Okay, I can straight away tell you now. I followed Stephen Marek. I can write it here.
Yeah, please.
And I relate to your story because I also stepped into cloud at some time. Before that, I was a non-cloud architect. Try Udemy, Udemy, Capgemini or Capgemini, Udemy. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah, it's
remember.
okay.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Capgemini. No, the course can be look for Stephen Marek and go for AWS Solutions Architect Associate. Don't go for foundational based on what you've just said. For you, foundational is not worth it. Okay, go for this course at the
Okay.
associate level. It'll start from basics, has to start from what is cloud, what is the data center, and then we'll go all the way to what is required for an associate level person. With this, you can even start solutioning. Okay, at a professional level, it's more of enterprise and many other things. But yeah, get connected to people. More and more blogs that you can read, more and more. Follow this. This will be the first good point that I can share with you.
Okay. Can you just show the
Yeah.
slide again? That particular slide. I just one more question over there.
Yes, yes, yes.
Here. So here, like here, it is on the point number one. It is written that we can do some hands-on project experience also.
Yes.
So,
How do you do it?
like, yeah,
How do you
how
do
we
it?
do it?
In your case, you are aiming to be an architect. Okay. I'll tell you
Mhm.
how my Capgemini interview happened. Okay. I had built some architecture. It was a working architecture, or let me tell you something before that. Okay. I was not in cloud. And how did I get my first cloud architect role? Um, it is good to build something, as in you can show your architecture. You can say it's a working architecture. You go to this URL, you will see this working, and this is what I have. You can show your diagram out, right? Then if the person is genuinely interested, he may say, well, explain what happens here. Why did you do this? What was the rationale behind choosing this? He might get into that kind of conversation. If they see sound architectural judgments behind your decisions, then you come across as a strong architect. Okay. If you say, no, I thought it is, and your answers don't carry much weightage, then you say, you know what, this guy is just learning. I don't know if he can perform it. So suggestion here is go ahead, build something. As you learn, even in that course, they'll give you some architecture patterns. You go build these. You can create your account. You can stay within the free tier. You don't have to pay a lot. Okay. Say if it's $5, $10, maybe we are okay to pay. But even without that, within the free tier, you can create a lot. If you're good with GitHub, go create it, publish it, talk about it in your blogs, create an account in Medium, keep writing blogs. More and more people will come across it, learn. So you can display this, you can display your work, you'll answer better because you've built it. Right? When you're building it, you'll come across many issues. So all that stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
We have only 1 more minute left. We will take one more last question. That is going to be Mohan's. Okay,
Yeah,
over
so
to you.
Navid, this is Mohan. Yeah, Navid, thanks for
Yeah.
that session. So I'm now shifted to purely on a management side. So it's a engagement management role, and sometimes we get some proposal and all. So do I need to go with any of this certification, or it is just a high level, knowing the architecture is enough? Because
A follow-up question. A follow-up
yeah,
question. What is it that
yes.
you want to do? You want to continue being in the engagement manager role and just do it better with cloud, or do you want to move closer to cloud with more cloud roles?
So see, working in a project as a engagement manager, it won't be a one technology per se, right? We have to be,
Okay,
versatile with multiple technologies. So I
understood.
cannot be
So I
mastery
take
in
it.
one of the.
So I
Yes.
take it you want to be very well familiar with cloud to provide solutions, but then you're happy as an engagement manager and you want to be in touch with many other technology. Okay, fine. Right. So I can relate to your story. I was an engagement manager for 2.5, 3 years. I was on site on the client floor. So you can imagine, right, that role. Right. So when I was doing this role, and after that, there was a little bit of program management and all that, but I started the cloud journey, right? So what can I do to familiarize more with cloud? For that, there are smaller, shorter ways. Okay, there's a fundamental level or the foundation level that we spoke about. It'll give you all the relevant details to the extent that you can talk intelligently about cloud. Okay, you can talk about technical terms here there. You may not sit and create an entire solution. The architect will do it, but at an engagement manager level or a business head level, we recommend for a start this foundational level. This one you can pick up any cloud that your client is comfortable with. Maybe they are working on AWS, so look at the practitioner level, or there's a cloud leader
Okay.
in GCP and all that, right? So in your case, sufficient to be very familiar with the services they offer.
Okay. Thanks, Navid, for the session. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Navid, one question from my
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
I have working on microservice architecture with the GCP cloud environment. Accordingly, I have completed a Google Cloud Architect.
Super.
How to identify which cloud design pattern is suitable for AWS apart from GCP?
The last part of the
Is
question: how to identify?
cloud design patterns
Oh, the
for
architecture pattern
AWS
themselves. Okay,
other than
okay,
GCP?
okay.
Is it
I
any
have to
different way? Yeah.
um, as in between AWS and GCP, are they different?
Yes.
Is that your question? Okay,
Yes.
short answer is no. Okay. Design patterns, architecture patterns, confidently short answer, no, they're not different. Okay. The specific name of the resource or the specific way they've approached certain solutions like security can be different, but the patterns themselves are the same. Design patterns and architecture patterns, they are here to address common issues and problems. In general, you want to serve some content. all these cloud providers we have, they'll have something or the other to easily serve content, or the performance will be increased, cost will be low. So across the cloud or any system, let's talk about cloud, right? So the architecture patterns will not differ. They are the same. Last week we had a talk, and before that, I think January I specifically had a topic on architecture decisions and anti-patterns. Okay. We'll leave anti-patterns for now for our question. So architecture patterns, I brought about 3 different patterns. There are so many, but I brought up what is more common and interesting, right? So if you want to, one, you can check out my blogs. I keep writing a series of architecture patterns. And again, keep making this disclaimer. I may have used AWS or GCP, to explain, but the principles behind these remain the same. Okay, so confidently and short answer, no, they are the same. If you're very comfortable with GCP, you can easily handle one of the other clouds, but get to know the nuances before you commit. Right?
Okay, that's fine. Generally, which cloud design patterns are we are preferring?
Which cloud do we prefer? Is that the question?
Which design patterns are preferring for our architecture point of view?
It's a
Which
very
cloud?
big question. It's a very big
Yeah.
question. So which design patterns are preferred is the one which is most appropriate for the use case. Maybe the client has brought up a use case where you have this as the requirement, and therefore these patterns are most tried and tested and reliable. So depending on your use case. So since you're interested, I suggest you read more and more about architecture patterns, more on board, especially on cloud. So cloud architecture patterns has emerged as another separate study in itself. So if you want, you can look at my blogs. If you want, you can search for blogs on Medium. Maybe I'll leave my URL for
Okay.
the blogs. So there are series of architecture decision patterns that I've written. I continue writing. You can see, and that's not the only source, right? There's so many sources. If you're interested, please continue learning more on architecture patterns. And I suggest coming and talking about it also in our Architectors Connect sessions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Could you please share the URL for the
No
blogs?
problem. I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
Sorry, very big text. One last comment from my side. I realized much later, just before starting the call, that it's mostly Capgemini, and very few non-Capgemini. Okay. But since we have a lot of people from Capgemini, I have 2 quick tips to share before we drop off. Tip one is, there are Architect Connect sessions, right? So if you can join, you look at the title. If it's interesting for you, join. Many times we talk about architecture patterns, anti-patterns, some of the specific use cases where we were able to cleverly re-architect, okay, and give them some savings and increase the security, especially with GCP to AWS and that kind of stuff. So if those titles are interesting to you, please join. They're usually on Fridays 4 to 5. Second thing is, there's a very good opportunity, but scarcely available. So vSynergize is a good platform. I currently picked up one particular assignment. If you want to work on AWS or GCP or any other platform or any other technology for that matter, so if you have some bandwidth, they offer these work tasks. So if you want to, you can attempt it so that you can gain some experience. So try to utilize these forums.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Naveed.
Good.
It was
Thank
really insightful session, and I hope everyone is able to grab this session. And thank you for your time, and it was nice session.